Okay.
All right. Take a drink of coffee. All right. Buds Aplenty, episode 6. I can't believe I've made it this far. That's been crazy to even think that I've had the persistence to go this far.
Yeah.
Today I've got on the youngest Buds Aplenty guest.
Honored
To have Mr. Trent Pennington on.
Appreciate it.
Great to see you. How you doing?
Been good.
Been good?
Yeah.
What's been keeping you busy?
So this weekend I was up in Notre Dame visiting my best friend. So I was up there since Thursday. Then swung down. I was swinging back down home and thought I'd stop by, say hey.
Works out.
Nice little break on the trip down.
You were talking about the campus a little bit earlier. What'd you think of being able to see it firsthand?
Man, I'd been up there when I was in, I think, 3rd grade. Went to a football game. Didn't really remember much. And then, like, going back now, like, just seeing the dome. And you got, like, Touchdown Jesus, everything like that. So it kind of, coming from IU, you're like, wow, like, our campus is just so beautiful. And then you see theirs, and it's like, gosh, like, just blows it away.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's also the difference in a public and private school?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
plays a huge factor.
Yeah, they. It's weird because it's just such a small. Like, I mean, their tuition's like $60,000 a year. So you're like, man, they would have all these buildings and stuff. But yeah, it's super small, like old buildings. They just keep them in really good shape. So very impressive stuff.
We've got a long background of sports together, and that's the gist of what we're going to talk about today.
Very long.
I mean, we played basketball together for 2 years. Was that what?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years. That was fun.
Very fun. Pearly. Oh, good old JV time.
Yeah, and then we've been in fantasy football together for that's 6. No.
Maybe not. I think you guys have played for 6.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in for like 4
because you won the 3rd year.
Right.
That was your first title.
First time, and then been in a drought since. So.
Yeah. So now that we're we're getting into it, the gist of the show is that the guests get to determine what we talk about. You know, if you've seen the show before, we really just I hand it over to you guys and you guys talk for however long and whatever you want to talk about. So we got some ideas, but where do you want to start?
Let's go. I'm from IU. The Hoosier State. Gotta love your basketball. I know you covered them a little bit.
Very, very little, and it was.
I remember you used to write your articles, and then I would look at them, and it was fun.
Yeah. I love to hate the Hoosiers.
Yeah, you don't seem too happy about this topic.
But it's fine. I mean, I'm gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
I think that I think I had a hate for the Hoosiers because I'm a Kentucky fan,
Right.
But it was more towards I think I didn't mind the team. I enjoyed watching the team play at times, but it was mostly the friction between fans.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where IU fans are shouting at Kentucky fans, and it goes
so
back and forth.
Yeah.
And it always
I'll
has
be the
been.
first to admit it goes both ways.
Oh, totally. You and I have been very respectful. Same with Josh Lewis is always very respectful to us Blue fans.
Yeah.
Shane's always respectful to you guys.
Exactly.
But then there's some that are just so hostile.
They just don't. No respect.
They take it way too far because
Yeah.
it's just a sports rivalry, but there's no need to get in hateful discussions about it.
No.
So what do you think about the current? Are we going to talk about the basketball team? We're going to talk about how the football team's looking.
Yeah. Let's not talk about football.
We'll push that to the side.
That'll be down the road. Let's stick with basketball. Before I came, I was thinking about what to talk about. I was just kind of looking at their roster and stuff. Especially, I know we're going to talk about the draft coming up, but really, kind of a super young roster coming up. I think you got one senior, Hartman, who, he's
Yeah. Didn't play much last year, did he?
He started a few games.
But just started a few games. That's a big thing whenever you had Yogi who would start every single game.
Exactly.
Now not having that veteran who's going to start for you.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
I don't know. I think without Yogi, it's just, because me being at IU for 3 years, I've seen Yogi all 3 years. So it's it's kind of terrifying, like thinking about an offense out there without Yogi. But it's also nice to think about an offense without Troy Williams. So,
oh yeah. Me watching from an outsider as a fan, I was very up and down on Yogi. I think sometimes he had a lot of dead possessions where he would, go for a fast break and then pop up a three, and I'm like, man, that's not efficient offense.
Yeah.
But then again, a lot of times the IU offense never ran cohesive.
Yeah, that's the thing is I don't.
So
I don't know if we had an offense.
you're never going to get a good possession
Yeah.
either way. I mean, that may be the best possession you get because sometimes IU's offense really,
Right, it's stagnant.
throws on the handbrake.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's a motion offense, but it's I don't know. I mean, I think if you're going to give your
It's
players,
not much. It's not much of a motion. It's just
it's kind of a stand and wait.
Yeah.
Kind of a 4-out, let someone create. But it was rough to watch last year at times, especially just turnovers. I mean, when you're playing that fast, I mean it's going to happen. But it was rough.
Yeah, and that turnovers were back when I covered them too. That was a big problem. That it was. I think they may have. There were times when it was like 15 to 20 turnovers a game, and that's unacceptable.
No.
Especially Crean's been there a while, and I know a lot of people are hit and miss on him. Mm-hmm. Last year really changed a lot of people's perspective.
Yeah, I feel like that happens every year too. It's you start out and it's like
get him out of here, get him here.
And then,
I think we went 3 years straight where I've heard the campaign fire Crean.
Yeah, it's usually we've got that week non-conference schedule, so you start out winning like 9 in a row, and then you'll last year at Maui, after dropping those 2.
Oh, that was rough for you guys.
Yeah, and then for some reason we come into the Big Ten and just destroy people.
Run a train.
And then go to the Big Ten tournament. That's always a disaster. Going into the March Madness, kind of on a low note, really, because we never do good in the tournament, the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
And so it's like keep Crean, and then after the tournament, it's fire Crean. So it's just, I guess that's how sports is.
Yeah, it's how sports are. It's how fans are all the time. They're so hit hot and cold. I remember, for example, you go into the finals and everyone thought Harrison Barnes was really like playing to his caliber, and then you leave. And I checked on Reddit today. They announced that he's going to be on Team USA.
Okay.
For the Olympics,
which is surprising because a lot of people are turning that down.
A lot, yeah. I think also because the Olympics are going to be a disaster this year. A lot of journalists are saying don't even go. Mm-hmm. But he's, everyone now in the comments in Reddit are like, I can't believe they're letting him on. That's now someone's gonna overpay him because of Kenneth Faried. Mm-hmm. Kenneth Faried did that a few years ago where he played amazing in international play and then got overpaid. Mm-hmm. But I think fans are just so hot and cold. Oh, yeah. Over just 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's been 3 weeks since the Western Conference Finals ended.
Yeah,
and everyone was really on Harrison Barnes, and now it's on like the wagon, the bandwagon, and now they're just like
exactly.
You may only have like his dedicated core fans.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize just how like strenuous professional sports schedules are.
Even collegiate,
yeah. It's, because college basketball is 20 something regular season.
Mm-hmm. I think, and then you have
your 2 exhibitions,
and then you're playing your postseason, as we'll call it. And, you're playing 2 games a week, 2 or 3 games a week, and it's not like high school where that's an easy deal. Nowadays in high school, I remember we, prepped, we had scouts, things like that, and that's a whole different, discussion as a whole. But, at the collegiate level, that's the best it's the better of the best, not the best of the best. We'll save that for the pros.
Yeah.
But, that's a hard thing to do. 2 games in a week.
On top of schoolwork, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Just the workload.
I don't know where IU's at, going forward. It's a weird place for them, especially losing Yogi. That was like whenever they lost their draft or their class where they were, number 1 at the time.
Oh yeah.
With I can't even think of his name.
Their number 1 recruiting class you're talking about?
The number 1 recruiting class where they were number 1 in the nation for a while, right?
With well, it would have been Yogi's class. I think is what you're thinking.
Yogi's class, and then that would have been, who else was on that team? Oh, Zeller.
Oh yeah,
That year was, you know,
Zeller, Vic, yeah, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Watford, yeah.
Speaking of Oladipo, him going to
being
the
shipped.
Thunder.
Yeah.
I would have never. I thought the Magic were, you know, ride or die Oladipo.
Mm-hmm,
He had been playing pretty well for them.
Very well.
And was he Rookie of the Year?
I don't know. I don't keep up with it that much.
Yeah, it's hard for me to remember because I don't watch much sports anymore compared to what I used to.
I mean, I know he had a very solid rookie season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he slumped a little sophomore. He had that sophomore slump. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy for him, to be honest. I mean,
go to a contender, yeah.
I mean, he's going to the West, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But I don't know if that'll like sway Durant to stick around.
I read an SB Nation article that said, you know, this is an okay move if he stays or if he goes, because if he stays, that means you've got more or less a new big three there.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you'll be weaker on, you know, beneath the basket, but you've got Durant, you've got Westbrook, and you've got Oladipo.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty solid.
It's a very quick
1, 2, 3 punch. Yeah.
I mean, Vic is just ridiculously athletic, and then I mean everyone knows about Russ, so that's a really, because I imagine Vic would start at the 2 guard, so
yeah,
it's a very athletic 1-2. Did Ibaka? Did he start for them, or did he come off the bench?
Yeah.
He started.
Yeah,
Okay,
he started.
Remember.
If that's how it went, yeah, I think that's how it went. And they had brought Steven Adams off the bench.
Right, and I believe in the draft, I was kind of scanning it. I think they drafted that big guy out of Gonzaga.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with him. I forget his name. He's pretty polished. He's like 7'2". So they kind of said he'll help solidify the paint with Ibaka leaving. So I think it's looking good, but I think they're kind of limited with cap space.
As every team at some point gets.
But again, I don't know if you saw, but the NBA salary cap is
going up again.
Yes.
From what? Or how much more?
I want to say it was $70 million previously, and now it's all the way up to $94 million.
Good Lord.
Like increase it, yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's huge. It's crazy.
That can be a big deal, especially for those title contenders. Because you take a team like San Antonio. San Antonio is one of the 3. Apparently, sources say that they're one of the 3 teams that have recruitment meetings with Durant. It's them, the Thunder, and the Warriors.
Yeah.
And if the Spurs add Durant and not have to take a salary cap hit, that's huge.
Oh, it's very big. I just can't see Durant. I don't know how he would look in a Greg Popovich system.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's just all about ball movement and sharing. I mean, I was kind of skeptical when Aldridge came over, just how he would fit in, but obviously he fit in pretty nicely. So
yeah, at times they were considered the second best team in the West. Granted, they slumped in those semifinals where they lost to the Thunder. I remember going to watch. We were at a bar, Avery and I, and we're watching that series, and we're like, man, the Spurs, they look really good.
Yeah.
And I blink, and it's 4 games later, and they're out.
They're done. Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And that was my pick.
Was that in the? How soon was that in the playoffs?
Western Conference semis.
Semis. Okay.
Yeah, because then
I knew they didn't make it.
Thunder were up on the Warriors in the finals. The Western Conference Finals, and blew that.
Yeah.
That was, talk about another catastrophic, meltdown.
Yeah,
That's back-to-back
Very.
Western Conference teams that just fell apart.
But I would have loved to have seen a Durant, LeBron finals. I mean, that would be pretty.
Yeah, hopefully better than the last time they played, because it was 5 games last time, if I remember right.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot all about that.
Yeah. I think that. What do you think about the Warriors? Going forward, they played. I mean, a historic season. Shout outs to the 2007 Patriots, who won every game in the regular season. And got to the Super Bowl and lost. That's one of those 2 teams. They're now those two will be remembered together.
Right.
And now, had the meltdown, had Curry and Clay look like shells of themselves, kind of look a little uncharacteristic by their also on the court attitudes.
Mm-hmm.
Clay kind of looked, even
Right.
more so than Steph.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What you being an outsider to the NBA a little bit?
Yeah. No.
What do you think of the Warriors moving forward? What do you think? Do you think they'll have another season like last year? It's hard to tell, a week after.
It is, but I just have a hard time thinking that that team could be consistently that good, because it's all about hitting shots. I mean, I mean defensively, I take it they were all right.
Yeah, they were
because they made it that far.
Yeah, they weren't too bad defensively. We were comparing. I think we were at work. We had the whiteboard out because the whiteboard's always the best way to solve a sports problem.
Yeah.
And we were comparing LeBron's championship year to their championship year.
Okay.
I think it was his first or second one with Miami, and the opponent's points per game was only difference by like four or five.
Okay.
So that's a big deal.
They're really deep too.
Yeah, that
I feel
also
like-
helps.
Yeah, I mean,
Helped in
Iguodala-
game one.
Yeah, and like Iguodala, I mean, I feel like he's got to be getting up there in age.
Yeah, it's
But-
hard to. A lot of people forget that, but like the 1-2 punch with him as the two
Yeah.
was him and Iverson.
Yeah.
that was an amazing team.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Back when the Sixers were actually relevant,
Yeah, all right.
I'll always think about Iverson stepping over whenever he was with the Lakers or playing against the Lakers in the finals. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that would like be, everyone would
You'd be teed up.
maybe
Maybe a brawl.
maybe facing a suspension.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
A fine of some sort.
But yeah, I think the Warriors. It all depends on shots.
Yeah.
You either hit or you don't. They hit all season. That's the thing. They hit every time they played in the regular season.
And I think the last few minutes of Game 7, I mean, it was desperation time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, they were down. It's like they were down by 3.
They were tied.
After Kyrie hit that 3.
Kyrie hit the 3, and they were down with I think it was a minute or two left.
Yeah, I mean, and it was just heaving threes. I mean, I mean, I guess that's their strength, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't think that's the most reliable thing.
Yeah,
going forward.
It really boggled my mind when Klay Thompson made All-NBA second team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think of him as a playmaker. I don't think of him as a I don't think of him as high caliber necessarily. I see him as
for me, he's right on the border.
Right on the border, but he's a shot maker.
Yeah,
that's it.
I thought he was just a shot maker too, but as I watched, I mean, he attacks the basket pretty nicely, but I don't think
of him as like deserving that spot over James Harden.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I always think if I need a shot made at the end of the game, like
I'm not gonna pick Klay Thompson
over James Harden.
Or there's a laundry list of players I would pick over Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Steph Curry, obviously.
Right.
I would even take if it's not a 3 and you just need a single shot, I would take LeBron. Yeah. LeBron's gonna create a shot.
He'll attack.
He'll attack. Durant can do the same thing. Mm-hmm. You have your high calibers that are like, I'm going to give them the ball, and they're going to make the shot happen.
Yeah, some way or another.
Mm-hmm. Or you're fit into a system like the Spurs where it's going to happen because they know who to hit, when, and why.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I've always wondered that. I mean, if the Spurs had, they need a shot made, who's their go-to?
Yeah.
Now? I don't know if they have that.
Kawhi would probably be your best bet.
But I feel like with them, it's more of a, hey, let's run this set and see what happens.
I think
that's our options.
I think that's because you have the geniusness of
Popovich.
Pop, and I think because he can facilitate, direct, where you need to go. I mean,
right.
I'll talk about them later whenever we talk dynasties.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they are one for sure. They had great offense. They had great units just as a whole. Mm-hmm. You even look at the big threes going away, and you still have eventually once they all decide to lay down the swords.
Which Ginobili actually opted out of his. He had a player option. I think the word on the streets he'll be back.
Yeah.
But it's him opting out for more money.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah.
That's with you were talking about the cap
space, yeah.
cap increasing. People, we were talking about at work again, where a lot of players are saying, "Hey, I want 2 years and an opt out."
Yeah.
Because then with the cap just climbing, opt out, restructure.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do. Well, that's a good and a bad thing because you can restructure that for money,
mm-hmm.
or it's not like the NFL where you can say like you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah.
See ya whenever we play you with whatever team you're playing with now.
Yeah. Another interesting thing about the increased cap space. So they were talking about how that affected the draft. Because I think it's all first round draft picks. Their contracts are 2 years guaranteed.
Yeah.
And there's slot values for each pick, and those are set. And then teams can either sign them to a contract that's up to 120% of that value or 80%. Mm-hmm. So a little higher, a little lower. But the way their collective bargaining agreement's laid out, that new cap increase, that doesn't fit into the rookie scale for this draft. So those first rounders are essentially like they're,
making less money.
Yeah, than what they could be with the new. So really, all that new cap space is going to go towards free agents, people that have been in the league, and even they're saying, from a money standpoint, it would almost be better to be a second round guy.
Yeah,
because you have the ability to bargain and try to make your own contract compared to those first rounders.
And I think the draft, I've discussed it with quite a few people. It just has some problems just as a system, whether it be the lottery, mm-hmm. whether it be how people are picked in what order, and there's been suggestions or ideas tossed around of the wheel system, which is where they have numbers all listed around,
okay.
And so 1 year you're going to pick what number you want, whether it be the first round pick, whether it be so let's say, for example, the Sixers, they're going to take the first round pick.
Yeah.
Well, by the wheel system, it's not by what your record is next year, so it's to prevent tanking.
Okay.
You're automatically, it's like a list.
Yeah.
So it goes from 1, and the next year it's 17, the next year is 25. So then it's just like an automatic system.
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem with that is, say, you've got your number 1 overall pick for next year, and they go to a wheel system, and the Sixers got the first round pick. Mm-hmm. The next year is randomized, or it's in a set order, so who's got the next pick. So you say, hey, you can send the Lakers, they may have the pick and be like, hey, wait a couple years, you've got big money coming to you, or the Spurs, mm-hmm. wait till next year and you've got a first round pick with a championship contender right off the bat, mm-hmm. and so that can really sway the opinion. So I think the NBA just has problems and needs to address those, especially with contracts not being able to mm-hmm. guaranteed money. Mm-hmm. Guaranteed money is the Knicks dealt with that with Amari Stoudemire.
Oh yeah,
back whenever they signed him to 5 years, $100 million.
Yeah,
and
is he still in the league right now?
Yeah, he's in Miami.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So he's that was a prime example of them overpaying mm-hmm. and being stuck with him once he turned into a garbage dumpster.
Yeah.
He was bad.
Yeah, he went downhill quick. I think it's interesting how much different just the three. I guess I don't pay too much attention to hockey, but MLB, NFL, NBA, how different the drafts are.
Those I'd say were the trifecta of top sports in the league,
right.
or in the nation. With mm-hmm. the NHL right there, I think especially here in the Midwest, it's gaining a lot of popularity. Out west, you have soccer. Mm-hmm. Soccer is huge, and compared to the Midwest and this area in general. Mm-hmm. I think, those three as a whole are just so different.
Yeah,
I always found it fascinating, the differences between the NL and the AL in baseball.
Oh yeah,
those are just small differences, especially with the DH.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I don't know if I'm a fan of the DH or not. I mean, I'm not, because I'm more of an NL guy, just because I'm a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
But it makes a huge difference. I I mean, like with the Cubs, like when you have a player like Kyle Schwarber, who is like a questionable fielder, doesn't really have a spot on the diamond, but he's got a heck of a bat. Like, if they had the DH, like he'd be batting in the lineup every single day, but they don't. So, yeah, it's weird how that plays out.
So when the World Series comes around, this is me being less informed in baseball than like I used to. Mm-hmm. In the World Series, do they adopt a DH or does the pitcher have to hit?
So it's whoever the home team is. That's how it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's changing.
That's
you're playing a 7-game series.
You may adjust your lineup so you can get a bet. You had was it the Cubs pitcher who had hit a few home runs?
Are you talking about last year? Or just
a few? Yeah, in the last 5 or so years. I can't think of his name.
I know right now, like Madison Bumgarner.
Okay.
For the Giants, Arrieta for the Cubs. You're probably thinking of Carlos Zambrano.
Zambrano,
yeah, that's who you're thinking.
That's my man.
Oh man, yeah, he did have a few, and it's weird because some NL teams they take pride in like their pitcher hitting, so they'll actually because it can be valuable. Like,
so going back to the World Series example where I posed that question, you may have your pitcher. Like we'll take Zambrano for example. Zambrano may be your number one starter, but if that game's at home or if that game's away, when you're, a National League team, you may want to play him in the second game so you can take advantage of his hitting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's ever been a pitcher that is that solid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You actually want him in your lineup.
Shout outs to Babe Ruth.
So, yeah.
That may be the only example you can give.
Yeah, the one and only. But the Cubs have a few pitchers that can hit pretty well, and it helps a lot in if you go extra innings because baseball games can go just forever long, and you have a pitcher that's pitching for you, and he rolls around, it's his turn to hit. You might not want to waste a bench guy to pinch hit for him, so you might want to throw him up there just to hit. And the Cubs have a few guys that can do that.
Baseball, while I'm not a fan, baseball is kind of fascinating in the fact that a lot of people don't think about it, but of the 5 major American sports, it's the only one where the defense has the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about that.
I didn't either. Yeah. That's really
defense has the ball and no time. No clock really changes the pace of the game, and I think that can turn people off because of the pace. But
yeah, I know. I think it was last year, and I don't know if they're doing it this year again. But in AAA last year, they had the pitch clock.
Oh, actually, really?
Yeah, and I think it was. So what they did was they have a clock for between innings. So when a pitcher's warming up, you could go out there, and I think you're limited to the number of warm up pitches you get, but you could take forever. Just kind of at your own pace. But now I think it's 3 minutes between innings, so they're trying to get you in, get you out, and then the pitch clock is I want to say 25 or 30 seconds
in between pitches.
Yeah, so because some guys, pitchers like to work slow, like to work fast, but they tried it out in AAA. I'm not sure what the league thought of it, but I went to a few games and it was really weird. I wasn't a fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because it was so fast paced?
Yeah, it just I don't know. I think part of baseball is just being strategic and being able to do it personally what works best for you. I was a pitcher, so
yeah,
I like to work super fast to keep pitchers or batters on their toes. Mm-hmm. But some guys really like to slow it down, and you can't do that. It just kind of takes some of the. There's a little strategy in it. Mm-hmm. In a sense,
it's like the pace of an offense in any sport, especially football. Mm-hmm. You had the no huddle offense, which now is not near as efficient because of the. Do they have now rules where you have to be set and stuff? That
I think so.
Yeah. So I think having that in place, the no huddle. Whenever teams were really starting to adopt it, it was this is ridiculous. Now and then there's the conventional style where you huddle up after every play, mm-hmm. and let's take our time. Let's run them down.
Which are you a fan of no huddle, or are you?
I think it just depends on what works for the team because
your personnel.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the same with the pros in NBA. Mm-hmm. If you look at a team like Golden State could never run a slowed down 24-second clock offense.
Yeah.
They want as many possessions as they can get.
Yeah.
And that's not going to work for a team like, say, the Pacers are trying to move towards that.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a team like, I'm going to give not a great example, but the Pistons, where they have like Drummond, who's
a lot of big guys,
a big guy that's your best player. You're going to want to center that offense around. Get him the ball. I'm going to
give him a chance to get down the court, get set.
Yeah, I think that was the problem with having Roy Hibbert on the Pacers, because he was a great player, but he
just wasn't a fit.
He was kind of lumbering, big guy. Mm-hmm. So, if he fell down the other end, you're playing 4v5 until he gets up and comes down.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't play to his strengths.
Yeah.
And so it all depends on your personnel. It depends on what works. Because some teams can do it, some teams can't.
Yeah.
And same with NFL. Some teams can do it, and some teams, you get into that 2-minute warning, and it's just not going to work for them.
Yeah. Which I've always, I don't know. Like, so some coaches, they have, because we're talking about personnel, some coaches have that mindset of, this is what we're going to do, and I don't care who you give me.
Yeah.
This is my style. I run, like, we're going to run the power I, and I have RG3, like, we're still going to run it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then others are, I'm going to base my system around who I've got. So it's one or the other.
When sometimes you may get you may get a system where they're going to run what they want, but they're also going to demand, I need the personnel to match that.
Right.
I think that's one thing that helped for a while, but hurt Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
Because like that, he's got a great mind for offense, not a great mind for an NFL team sometimes.
Head coaching, yeah.
And so I think his offense worked really well in Oregon, and I think that worked in Oregon because he could recruit.
Yeah.
It's not where you're bound by contract, bound by who your higher ups can get for you.
Right.
It's
didn't have a salary cap.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a limit on scholarships, but
yeah, but it just depends on what works for that team. Because I'm trying to think of teams that really, really slow it down. You think of the old school Steelers. That was just
ground and pound. Yeah.
Bang your head against a table.
Yeah.
It's like you hated watching the offense.
Yeah.
You'd rather them get back on defense. And nowadays, Big Ben's still looking like he's 20.
Out there slinging it around.
He's got a broken arm and he's got in a sling, and he's like, I got him.
Yeah. It's crazy. Big Ben, I mean, he's just so huge, but he just avoids everything.
He avoids everything. He is I think the mobile quarterback, is starting to die off again. I mean,
it really is.
With RG3 starting to fade out, with Kaepernick going away, Mike Vick finally retiring,
Manziel not making it.
Man, that's just a joke in itself. Is Manziel not making it? He was a failure. He was set up to be a failure, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Big Ben is throws the ball well, knows to protect himself in most cases, and he's built to be built to take those hits if he has to.
Yeah.
The only other example that really comes to mind in that same thing is Cam Newton. Cam Newton is big guy, tall, very fast, very mobile, and he really showed a lot of promise last year. In the last few years, he's really been the come up. I remember one year in fantasy, I drafted him with the last overall pick, dropped him, and then he ended up going off.
Wow.
And then the next year he was a first round pick.
Yeah.
So I think that's another sport where you've got your tried and trues, but your newcomers can really turn heads pretty quickly.
Yeah. It's weird to see kind of styles of play in sports. They just fluctuate. It's kind of like trends, just going in, going out of style. Because you look at the top two quarterbacks taken in this year's draft. You could argue they're pretty mobile, but for the most part, Jared Goff from California, he was. He's more of your classic, drop back and pass. Wentz, I don't know much about him, North Dakota State.
Yeah.
But it looked like he was somewhat mobile. But not your Kaepernick or Newton, anything like that.
I don't think that's a necessity anymore. Whereas it used to be where they would come out of the option you have a lot of quarterbacks in college that run the option, and that was starting to translate to the NFL, where you had I'm trying to think of quarterbacks that ran it real well in the NFL. I mean, Kaepernick, the Chip Kelly offenses, where you were, taking the decision into the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, I think it was one of those phases where, remember when the Wildcat was big?
Oh, man. Everyone wanted to do that.
After Miami ran it for that whole entire, 2010 season, where they ran it, they beat I will never forget them beating the Pats by 30.
Yeah.
That was back when we ran head coaches in our fantasy league, and Shane started them, and they lost 6 points.
Yeah, have we been without head coaches for 2 years now?
2 years.
Just one? 2?
No, last year was our first year without him.
Yeah.
Because we were just using him as an extra bench slot.
Oh, man.
Unless you were desperate for points and you would just add whoever was playing on Monday night. Or if you were super strategic, you would add both head coaches that were playing on Monday night, and then they couldn't you would block the points.
Oh.
That was some strategy, but not really. Because it was only
very little impact there.
But yeah, the Wildcat was big, and then
yeah, I remember, man, the Wildcat, even in high school, they tried to run it whenever I was in high school, just because I think I don't know, it just sounds cool.
It was trendy.
Yeah, it sounds hip, sounds like you're gonna go out and just run everywhere, do something crazy. I mean, really, all it is just
it's the glorified option. It's the glorified option, yeah.
In the shotgun, yeah. I wasn't a fan of it, and I wasn't surprised seeing it disappear so quickly.
Were you surprised in seeing the option die as quickly as it did? Because it only was really prevalent for two years, really.
Yeah.
When Kaepernick gained his prominence, when RG3 entered the league, Cam a little bit, but now that a lot of those is taking a backseat, minus Cam, and Cam's now become more of a traditional.
Yeah,
he's got that balance. Are you surprised that the option has become dead?
I wouldn't say I'm that surprised. I think people are just figuring out you've got to keep your quarterback healthy, and that's your quarterback's gonna have a short life, especially in NFL.
Yeah,
because you look at running backs. If you're running the option, your quarterback's gonna get hit a lot, and a lot of those guys that do that are tiny. Kaepernick's not super big, but like you said earlier, Newton and Ben, they can take those hits.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and all the other quarterbacks that aren't big, aren't mobile. I'm looking at shout-outs to Peyton Manning, having maybe 100 rushing yards for his entire career.
I'll never forget
against the Raiders.
The Raiders the bootleg around for I think it was a 2-point conversion.
No, he did the bootleg to run out the clock, and he slid at the one.
Oh my gosh, I'll never forget that. And I was just, I clapped for him. It was impressive.
He did a bootleg against the Cowboys, I think it was, when he was in Denver. Mm-hmm. I think it was a 2-point conversion. No, it was right on the goal line, and he faked the halfback dive over the pile and just ran it out, and everyone's like...
Which, I'm curious if that was actually called, or if he got up there, him scanning the defense as well as he does and thought, man, there's nobody over there.
I'm going to say it's called. I guarantee it's called, because Peyton's I don't want to run.
Yeah.
The only running I do is back to the bench. or let's get my hurry up offense going. Let's go. But yeah, those quarterbacks, the slower ones, they're going to take in mind, getting rid of the ball, knowing that, especially in the NFL, I'm protected in a lot of different ways. So if I get rid of the ball and they hit me late, we're going to be moving the pylons, or we're going to be moving down the field no matter what.
Right.
You may not get the stats I want, but you're still going to be moving. Mm-hmm. It's going to be positive yardage for the team.
Yeah.
What a tangent. There was no cohesiveness to that discussion at all. No. We jumped from IU basketball to the NBA. Yeah. Talked about baseball in there a little bit.
Fantasy, the NFL.
That was disgusting. I've talked tangent.
Wow.
Yeah. One thing that you did mention you wanted to discuss was the pre-draft trades. We talked about that a little bit with Vic. Victor Oladipo, not Michael Vick. Mm-hmm. But... the Pacers really did some wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on the Pacers, because I'm not a big NBA fan. obviously I pull for the Pacers whenever they're playing.
Yeah.
I know they got Thaddeus Young, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Jeff Teague.
Brought back Jeff Teague, shipped him back home, so that's
Back
pretty
here to
nice.
Indy.
Yeah.
I think it's looking more at the Teague. The Teague pick was huge because that's always been the problem. You look at what I'm going to say was one of the best starting fives in Pacer history was George Hill, Lance Stevenson, Paul George, David West, Roy Hibbert.
Yeah.
Back when they were, the number 2 in the East,
Yeah.
back against the big 3.
And how far did they make it that year?
Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7.
Against the
Heat.
Yeah, the Heat.
The Heat, who ended up, I think, winning the title. They won the title that year. They lost in a game 1 or 2 in Miami was when Vogel had the decision to bench Roy Hibbert in the final possession. LeBron drove to hit the layup to win it.
I remember that.
Ever since then, there's been a real discussion of like the Pacers have never had a point guard,
Because I've read where Hill just wasn't your traditional
He's not.
attack and dish.
He brought the ball up, he did the job of a point guard. But a lot of times, he was more of a Russell Westbrook. Westbrook does fit in that style. I think he fits in that same class as him and Steph Curry, where he's more of a scorer and less of a facilitator. I look at Jeff Teague, and I spent, after it was announced, because, I don't have TV, so I don't know the announcements. Mm-hmm. Shane and I were talking. He's like, what do you think of this trade? Top thing on Reddit. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check it out. I spent half an hour looking into it, doing some of my own numbers crunching. Mm-hmm. And Teague averaged more points. This is over the last 4 years. Okay. Averaged more points, averaged more assists, and averaged more, I think it was steals, and played 5 less minutes.
Wow. I think I was reading an article about it, and it was some weird stat, some advanced stat, about attacking the basket. Like how many times per game on average they both attacked the basket. And Teague was by far, averaged 4 or 5 more times that he attacked the basket per game compared to Hill.
It's an interesting fact because that, I think that's a big deal with your point guards because that's where a lot of your assists come from. It's not just me finding the right guy, me finding the guy on a cut, me finding just a wide open jumper from the top of the key. Yeah. It's them making the moves necessary to create the defensive shifts.
Exactly.
And so I think that because you either have 2 options, they're going to shift the defense, you'll kick out, they'll hit the 3. Or hit a jumper, or they bring the big man, then you got to bounce pass, dunk, or they'll hit the layup. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see where the offense goes.
Now their new head coach, what's his name again?
Oh, I can't even think. He was the former coach of Portland, if I remember correct.
Okay.
There's a reason I keep my phone here. But anyway, he was an assistant coach, which Mitch is odd because they fired Vogel and said, "Hey, let's bring in someone new. We need some new eyes, need a new voice."
Yeah.
And they hire from within.
Which, were you a fan of Vogel getting the boot, or
not really? I think Vogel is, if I remember correctly, he's the winningest coach in our history.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I kind of lost track of how long he had been there.
He had been there since Danny Granger was, they had Jim O'Brien, and they were going, they were under 500, gave him the boot midseason, and then Vogel got them to a playoff spot after being subpar, sub 500 for the entire season. And then from there, he worked his way up, they got the 8th seed, and then got, I think maybe made the 8th seed again, and then they went Eastern Conference semis where they played the Heat. I remember that would have been 2011. Mm-hmm. I went and watched Game 3 of that series with Matt Stegeman.
Wow.
Matt Stegeman.
I ran into Matt the other day.
Oh, so did I.
Yeah.
Mine was at the class reunion.
Yeah.
So it was, that was a great series, and then they lost. Nate McMillan is his name. Nate McMillan is, used to coach. Where else did he coach? I'm trying to see. not an old guy. He's only 51.
Mm-hmm.
He coached at. That's right. He did coach at Portland. He coached. If I can find it. God, I can't. Coaching career. Coached at the Sonics. Coached at the Blazers. Assistant coach in Team USA and now Pacers.
Okay.
I also have bias for Vogel because he was a Kentucky man.
Oh, there you go.
Did you know that?
I did not.
He coached it, or he was an assistant at UK.
Under
Patino.
Wow.
Yeah. So way back.
Yeah, that's
So
been a while.
and he was just a video guy too. He was a video guy for Patino. He worked his way up in Patino's staff.
Yeah, it's weird how some of the coaches work their way up.
Mhm.
That's their path, you know.
And you also look at like the tree of, you think of, a head coach and then them spurting out.
I know we'll talk about this later, but Luke Zeller, who I work for, he's a big fan of coaching trees, and so he had a brief stint with the Spurs, and looking at Pop's coaching tree is just crazy.
Mm-hmm. You also look at like Belichick. So many people came out of like Belichick. Like I remember someone telling me like, so and so came out of the Belichick offense or Belichick system. I was like, really now? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like there's so many people that have been influenced by those, tried and true.
Right.
It makes you wonder, like, sometimes you think of a Hall of Fame coach like Phil Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
but yet you don't hear a lot of like their seeds.
Right.
And I think it's only because because their system worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I also like the Thaddeus Young pickup because we were talking about it, and
he's relatively young, right?
I think mid-20s.
Okay,
if I remember. I think he's only been in there.
I thought he was older than that.
I think he's only been in the league 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
15 points a game last year. Granted, he played for Brooklyn.
Is he a power forward?
He's more of
a wing guy?
That is a good question. I'll get this official because I don't want to botch it. Thad Young, he plays. Showing my lack of TV, he's a small forward.
Okay.
So that means he'll play the 3. Paul will still play the 4.
Wow.
And probably, and Miles Turner will play the 5.
Okay.
So, and Miles Turner last year came out of Texas, and I think he really fits in this new.
I watched him a few times. Pretty impressed.
He fits in this new style that the NBA is going towards, where the big man isn't playing on the block for the ball.
Kind of elbow.
He's gonna playing elbow. He's gonna be able to hit an 18-footer. Even he's a 3-point shooter as well. He can step back. He's very. If I were to compare him like the same type of player, it'd be like an Anthony Davis, where you can do everything. Mm-hmm. Not near the caliber. Anthony Davis is like, when he's healthy, could be a top 5 NBA player.
Yeah.
But I think his future is bright. He started half the season last year, if not more. Mm-hmm. Miles Turner.
Yeah, I know that pick was pretty. Not a lot of people liked it, didn't they?
Not a lot of people like him, or the Pacers picks.
Yeah.
Pacers have been historically bad at drafting.
Yeah. Who did they take this draft? Do you remember who their first rounder was?
They didn't have a first rounder. They traded for Thad Young.
Thaddeus Young. Okay.
Yep. So Thaddeus Young will be, he brings 15 points to the table. You still got Monta, who's going to bring. He's older. He'll bring 10 maybe to the table.
So that's your starting 5.
Will be
T. Ellis, Young, George, and Turner.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Pacers, from what I understand, still have $20 million. Cap space.
I read something interesting the other day about.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
The KD thing.
Yeah, KD came to visit.
That's crazy.
I think it was just him and Paul just talking. Like, hey, this could be a thing. And if that happens, we'll see. If they just wasted it, or not waste, but if they blow an entire $20 million on KD, that's a huge run. That's a huge gamble.
Yeah, you're going all in.
Yeah,
pretty much. I don't know what other kind of prized free agents are available this year. I haven't looked into it.
I haven't either. I think most of it's just been through trades because the other big one that shook the country was the former MVP being shopped to New York.
Yeah.
No one saw it coming.
Stuff. Yeah.
And that was just for like Robin Williams, right?
Yeah, Robin Lopez.
Not Robin Lopez. Not Robin Williams. Not
okay.
Too many names.
Well, yeah. Robin Lopez, I think it was a kind of an older, like washed up guard, and then a future like second rounder or something. It wasn't much.
It's not much,
No.
and you know he played not bad last year. He averaged like 20. I mean that's good.
Yeah.
That's more than what Thaddeus Young put up, and we gave a first rounder compared to them giving up a bunch of misfits.
I don't know, because is Thibodeau, Thibodeau, whatever, is he still their coach?
No, is he in Milwaukee? No. They
somewhere out west, I think.
They be rid of him last year.
But because I know when he was there, some players there, I think, kind of butted heads with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of wondering if maybe it was them just kind of getting Rose, like we're moving on.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, and they're talking about getting rid of Jimmy Butler too.
Yeah.
That's the talk that they're the Lakers are going to shop their first round pick for Jimmy Butler. And I'm like, talk about that is the definition of rebuilding, is getting rid of your three. If you count last year, they got rid of Luol Deng.
Mm-hmm.
That was their three, and then Joakim
is now did Powell play for them?
Powell is with them still.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes we've hit so many like spots in sports it's hard to remember, and I'm not near as like in the sports culture as I used to. Mm-hmm. Especially, I think the fall of ESPN, or like what ESPN has now become, makes it so hard to obtain and enjoy sports media like I used to.
Right.
I think you have to really stretch yourself to find the right source of sports just media.
Yeah. I don't in high school it was ESPN like all day, but now I get most of my information just Twitter.
Yeah.
Just following those sports journalists that I really admire.
Yeah, because whenever I unfollowed almost everything ESPN related.
Mm-hmm.
I did not unfollow their writers, because the writers are a personality. It's not the sports it's not them just drowning us with the same old LeBron's doing this.
Yeah.
Steph Curry, I love him.
He's warming up.
Here's his warm up routine.
Yeah.
That was one of the spots where I drew the line.
Yeah.
I think it's over focus on certain things. Like, I don't think we need NFL Live playing 5 times a week in June or July. I mean, July more so.
Yeah.
Because no one cares.
Yeah. But which it's crazy is because they would only do that if it was making them money somehow. So obviously people are watching NFL Live that much. But I guess there's people out there that do that.
And you've had so many people jump the ship. I mean, I hate to bring him up on this on my show, but Skip Bayless leaving, that's a big deal because he made some money.
He did.
And I, not a fan of Skip. You look at the big one. I think that a lot of people forget was Mike Tirico leaving. That is shocker, because Tirico, maybe in my opinion, is the best overall commentator of everything, not just of one sport, because he's known for his Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
He does amazing college games. He does amazing pro games. He is, almost essential to a commentary crew. And now ESPN loses that, and who are they going to pair with? Mr. Loudmouth, John Gruden.
John Gruden, baby. I mean, back to the Skip Bayless thing. I was a huge First Take fan. I couldn't couldn't stand Skip. Stephen A, when I was younger, I just liked him. I don't know why. But, as you grow older, it's wow, he's just annoying and doesn't know anything. Mm-hmm. I saw the other day where he's 0 for his last 7.
0-6.
0-6, yeah.
I saw that. It was I think 1.3% chance of him missing every pick in the NBA Finals. Because it's a 50-50 chance, and you miss it 6 times in a row.
Yeah. And you get paid to do that.
Yeah, oh yeah. Pay decent money, good money.
Yeah.
Good money for a guy to talk.
Yeah. But I think that show in particular I mean, I don't know how successful it was to begin with, because it's a love-hate show.
Because it used to be cold pizza.
Yeah.
In the old days, if you go back,
pizza.
cold pizza.
Wow.
And yeah, that's flashbacks to you, tried and true ESPN fans.
Yeah.
And I think I remember it starting to gain prominence and hate was when Skip was so high on Tim Tebow.
Oh,
That was where it started to really hit the.
it went Tim Tebow and then Johnny Manziel. And he was a huge Johnny Manziel guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it made no sense.
Speaking of putting those two on blast, he has also been icon, like his tweet when he said that he thought Manziel would be bigger than LeBron.
Yeah,
At some point. What?
I saw it. Oh, man, that was great.
Manziel will never play another game in the NFL. I tell you that right now.
No. I don't think he'll ever play another game of professional football, period.
Yeah.
I mean, Canadian League? I don't know.
Maybe if they bring the XFL back.
Arena?
Yeah, or maybe
He would actually be pretty good in Arena, I think.
if he could get off the whatever he's been on.
The off the field issues.
Good Lord. We just went another 40 minutes. We're at 3:40 already.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty quick. I'm gonna take a quick break.
That's it.
Yeah. So we're back. I didn't need to take. I just need a coffee. Coffee is crucial, especially our age. Once you,
I always hated coffee until college.
yeah,
I couldn't stand it.
I didn't start drinking coffee till my junior year, and then like I went to 4 cups a day. Not because like I needed it, because I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's good.
It's like the same thing with, acquiring a taste for beer. I think as you get older, your taste buds kind of change a little bit, and then like you acquire those tastes for different things.
Yeah.
Same with like wine drinkers. Well, I'll never be a wine drinker. I can never do it.
Yeah.
But, we were just talking. I love me a good beer.
Exactly.
Love me a good cup of coffee.
Yep.
Now, like recently, I've been eating like tons of fish.
Okay.
Whenever I was in high school, and even like before that, hated fish.
See, I love seafood.
No, seafood is amazing, and I think that helped is like actually like figuring out what good seafood is.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you have one more year of school, right?
Right.
Do you have any like ideas of what's next?
So like kind of my dream job is to work with like college athletes in like a college athletic department.
Which you majored in?
So I was a sport marketing and management major.
Okay.
That's my minor now. So I'm actually a law and public policy major.
Well, okay.
Yeah. When I came into college, I kind of thought law school at first.
Mm-hmm.
And I just I've always been interested in kind of it's just like a lot of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not sport marketing and management major is kind of a joke, especially at IU. But I don't know. I just kind of wanted to push myself a little further, I guess, because you can kind of tailor it to a sports industry, like sports law classes, which are really interesting. So yeah, that's.
Well, what would a sports law class entail? Like, give me an example.
Yeah. So I took one this past semester. It was actually taught by a law professor. A lot of pay for play, should college athletes be paid? Biggest issue. Gender equality, Title IX. Those are the two biggest. Just looking at a lot of coaches' contracts and stuff. Seeing how ridiculous some of the.
So it's almost like the behind the scenes stuff of what, not the sport as themselves, like we talked about for the first hour or so, but everything behind it.
Exactly.
Like we got into talking about what was it, the CBA? Was that where? Yeah. So where we were talking about that, and that's what kind of the stuff that you would see.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Back to a little tangent there, but really what I'd like to do is work kind of mentoring college athletes. I know a lot of college athletic departments have leadership and life skills development that they do with their athletes. So, and just because it drives me crazy seeing college athletes just make dumb mistakes.
Yeah.
So really, that's what I'd like to do.
And having that at the beginning would also help to prevent them to make dumb mistakes later on. Because you get so many athletes that, I don't know what the percentile is, but so many athletes get into their sport, make dope, make a lot of money, and then
just yeah.
Spend it
never
on.
see it.
Pippen, like Scottie Pippen bought that like $5 million jet that didn't even work.
Wow.
Like, why would you?
Yeah. I know there's that like ESPN 30 for 30 about people. I forget what it's called, but it's about athletes and their money.
That's one thing that I don't think is ever declining is the quality of ESPN 30 for 30.
Dude, they're so good. And I haven't been able to watch the OJs.
Oh yeah, I haven't either.
Because I've heard that it's just so good.
Yeah, I remember watching some of those old school ones. Like my favorite one's Bo. No, you don't know Bo. That one's so good.
Of course, I mean I'm a huge Bo Jackson fan.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, who's not? But yes, that's such a good one. I'm trying to think of the other ones.
Reggie versus the Knicks. You have
that.
to mention that one here in Indiana.
Yeah. Have you seen the one? It's about the mob paying off the Boston College basketball team.
No.
Fixing games. Very interesting.
The Jimmy V one is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the original one that, like, not the most original one, like the first one, but we're talking the one that got everyone on the train was the one about Michigan. Michigan basketball.
Oh yeah. The Fab Five.
Fab Five,
Yeah.
thank you. And like that was such a good one.
Very good.
Having four of the Fab Five, not counting Chris because Chris still is kind of silent about it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and then of course the two they've done on them.
The first year
recently
was really good.
Yeah, the recent one, kind of recent. The Randy Moss, Rand University. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah.
That. Very good.
Yeah, those are super quality, and like I think that also plays into the fact that documentaries are gaining steam because of Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Netflix,
sure.
like some people will say, like, you know, what are you watching on Netflix? Oh, I'm watching through this show, this season, and everyone's like, yeah, okay. And then sometimes you talk to people and like, I'm on a huge documentary kick.
Mm-hmm.
I know Avery has been on those before.
Okay.
I'm like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think 30 for 30s came at a right time to appeal to that audience where I'm not a documentary guy, but I'll definitely watch a sports documentary.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I think that's one of the cool things about sports is like the stuff happens and you have the game, but then you have everything surrounding it where they're like commentary, you have the people talking about it before, the pregame, the postgame, the postseason discussion, the preseason discussion.
Yeah.
And you have this opinion on this one. You have a bulk of content just based on a single draft pick, for example.
Yeah.
So I think that's the nice thing about sports and just sometimes journalism as a whole, because you can get so many differing opinions on so many different topics, or even the same topic.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I mean, because if you just like take out all the extra, stuff from sport, I mean, you still just have a game being played. But then all the extra stuff, like there's that 30 for 30 over Kurt Schilling and his bloody sock, and he was pitched in the I think it was the World Series or maybe or ALCS, but
it may have been the ALCS. I think it was whenever they were playing the Yankees go to the.
That's when they came down. They came back from. I think they were like down 3 games.
Yeah, that was when it was 3-0, and they came back to win that, and then
they won
the World Series. That would have been in 2003. Yeah,
it's insane.
But yeah, that like the small details to that even.
Mm-hmm.
I think a fun one would be, well, you being a Hoosiers guy, would love one over Bobby in the chair.
Oh yeah,
I think like that is like folklore legend.
Yeah.
And because no one would think to do something as ridiculous
as that. Yeah,
but that would be.
I don't even know. Like, it would be so. If they did do that, there's no way Bobby Knight would appear on that. I wouldn't think. Maybe he would.
I mean, he's still an ESPN employee.
Oh, he still is?
If I remember right. Well, he was, as recent as a few years ago.
Yeah.
And, did commentary for him.
He always did, like, the Pac-12, or I forget what conference it was, but they assigned him to, like, some conference way out west. And he always did their games.
Which kind of makes sense because I see, like, Dan Dockich do Big Ten games, and it's like, please.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
Of course, they let Bill Walton stick out there in the
Bill Walton, the commentary is kind of. I think I've talked about it before. I think I'm not a huge fan of commentary nowadays. I think you get very few that are really like I think
talented at it.
And I think have passion for it. I think you look at it and they're just so like, this is what people want. And I don't think the common sports fan know what they want out of commentary. Because you look at Tirico, and Tirico is like that example of where he has fun with it, but also is informed and knows when to talk about what issues at certain times.
Yeah.
I think another one that does it is Al Michaels. Al Michaels is probably he's right up there with Tirico. So appropriate that NBC has both of them.
Yeah, both of them. They kind of just paint that picture of what's happening, and then they pick and choose their times, like you said, to go off, not really tangents, but talk about some outside stuff.
Show some energy. Show some variance. I think that's the big one is variance.
But I think when you look at ESPN, like with their commentators, I mean Bill Walton. Like everyone knows Bill Walton's an awful commentator, but it's so bad and weird that it's going to make them money. It's going to draw viewership.
It's more of the same from what ESPN likes. I mean, you look at what we were talking about earlier. First Take. First Take is not because of quality. No. It's because of the noise that they're just making.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
how it can
me and you could make a show right now exactly like First Take. Just barking back and forth at each other.
Barking back and forth and just making ridiculous claims. You know, I could sit here and say like LeBron's not even a top 10 player, and I'll get so much, viewership, so much buzz. Like this guy, he has no idea what he's talking about. But that's what pays is people saying, this guy's ridiculous because people are paying attention. People want to hear what ridiculous statement you're going to say next.
For sure.
So I think that's like the culture that ESPN's kind of like thriving on now. It's sad to see.
Very sad.
One thing I do want to talk about, and we had talked about it whenever we were discussing starting up the show. I want you to convince me to be a baseball fan because I used to enjoy baseball. Then I opened my eyes and realized I can't do it.
When did you?
That would have time. In the midst of the steroid era. So it's been that long.
Okay.
So because I remember like watching all 7 games of the Yankees Red Sox series, the Bloody Sox series, like we were just saying. And then, after all those steroid users left, it just became like, whatever. I used to have and I also stopped playing. I didn't play in that time either, so.
So you kind of lost interest because of
I don't know.
Because of the game itself, or just the idea that like people were using steroids?
I think the game itself, actually, because like that was before. I think football replaced what I liked in baseball, because like I my first football game I watched was the 2002 Super Bowl where the Pats beat the Panthers.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah.
So that was my first game, period.
Wow.
Because no one in my family enjoyed it. My dad wasn't an NFL guy. My dad was a tried.
So you would have been in like 5th grade, maybe?
Let's see.
Because I was in 2nd grade. I would have been in 2nd grade.
So I would have been 4th or 5th. Depends. Wow. So, yeah, that was when I remember watching that game, and then like from then on, like it slowly fantasy football became a thing, and then that's where like my love really like flourished for the sport.
Yeah.
And then like all in that time, like my love for baseball just kind of like faded away.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know. I think
it also didn't help that my favorite player was also Ken Griffey Jr., who was always hurt and always in and out of the game.
Very weird fact. I was actually talking about this last night to somebody else. So my uncle, I think part of the reason I love baseball is my uncle played professionally.
Yeah.
And he actually gave up Ken Griffey Jr.'s longest recorded home run. So that's so that's kind of like what his claim to fame is. Is giving up Ken Griffey Jr.'s longest home run.
That's his odd fact of the day about me.
It was at Camden Yards, so in Baltimore.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar, but there's this huge warehouse that sits in right field. Like you got the stadium, the street, and then the warehouse. And Griffey just hit that warehouse like on the fly.
Wow.
And I always, it's on YouTube, and every time he's in town, I pull that up and joke with him about it because Griffey hits it and it's obviously gone, and they just go to his face and he's like just in disbelief. But yeah, Griffey, man, one of the prettiest swings ever.
Oh my gosh. I think you can put him right up there with Grant Hill and maybe even, I think those two, especially in lost talent or lost potential.
Yeah.
Because they, due to injury especially, those two were, and Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
But those three could have been, Ken's already a he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But, Grant Hill, not going to be a Hall of Famer. Bo Jackson, it's already known that he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. They're players of legend, but their legacies are tainted because of being hurt.
Interesting.
Same with Brandon Roy. Remember Brandon Roy?
Brandon Roy.
He was the Portland guy. He played NBA for Portland before Aldridge got there.
Oh yeah, okay.
And who's their guard now?
Portland's big
player.
Lillard.
Yeah, Damian Lillard. Yeah. Before they both got there, it was Brandon Roy, and Brandon Roy was it. And then both of his knees went out. Well, one went out, and then another went out. And it'll be the same thing with Derrick Rose. Mm-hmm. Those were just plagued by injury, and so their legacies are scarred forever. Anyway, make me a baseball fan. See if you can do it. What?
I honestly don't know if it's
possible.
It's possible. I mean, because I think with baseball, it's just, I don't know. It's such a love-hate. Everyone I talk to, because people are I can watch the NBA, but it's not my favorite, but I still watch it. And the same thing with football.
Why do you think there's such a love-hate and no middle ground for it?
I mean, compared to hockey, basketball, football, I mean, it's so much slower. I mean, you've got to be patient. Like you said, it's weird. I never thought about the defense having the ball so much.
Yeah. I remember reading that. Someone had wrote that about the weird things about baseball, and I was like, whoa. I mean, you may get in other sports like cricket, which is another those two are so related. Yeah. But you think about that, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. I think baseball is pretty comparable, and I'm not a huge soccer fan.
Yeah.
But to me, I think it's comparable because it's, like you said, it's love-hate, and it's one of those games where it's it's poetic. There's something to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just that fan group gets it. You know what I mean?
I think it's also because with the patience, I think you look at that as soccer, and I think you have to find, it's more about the small opportunities and the small minutes, the small the micro parts of the game. There's so much micro compared to the macro of an entire NBA game, fast paced back and forth. Yeah.
There's only so many opportunities to score. I mean, to make a difference in the game.
I mean, you even think about the how to score. You've got to move a full distance.
With the NBA, I'll just keep shooting threes. I can do that all I want. With the NFL, I'll keep chucking balls. But with baseball, it's you have to hit the ball.
And you have to advance.
Yeah.
4 places. If you don't advance that, you're not going to score unless you're just going to hit home runs the entire time. I think that's why the steroid era, the before all the trials, before all the convictions, I think that was when baseball was at its highest because it would ratings wise, not in play,
right?
Because you had so much scoring, so much. You think of Bonds going for 73 in that. In his one season, and that was exciting to see because the long ball. Whereas not many people are going to appreciate the sack bunt that's going to advance the runner to second
scoring position. I think because especially like you said after the steroid era, no one was interested. Pretty low, obviously a low point in baseball.
A lot of people were saying it could potentially die.
Yeah, but now when I look at it today in MLB, I think they're kind of turning that corner of there's so many young players that are just so good in valuing athleticism in a baseball player now.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Cubs, the majority of their roster is under 26. It's crazy, and these guys can play multiple positions, and just so much strategy involved.
I think it's also hard thinking about it that you talk about, so much young talent. That may be a big turnoff for me is like not knowing anyone. It's like going into a sport and walking into a room and not knowing a single person. Mm-hmm. You have to take the time to know who each individual person is.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I don't know if I'm willing to invest all that time. Whereas if I go to the NFL, I'm going to know at least one player on every team.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think also, we talked about it being slower, fewer opportunities. You look at basketball and football. You've got bodies flying everywhere, like every single play. There's always, someone's getting demolished or like, the ball is flying through the air for a deep pass.
Someone's going to make an amazing catch.
Someone's dunking, like something crazy like that. But with baseball, the players are pretty stagnant.
Yeah.
And you could almost argue the same for soccer just because it's like the field's so big. Yeah.
What do you think? It also, thinking about it from my perspective and, other people that may not be fans of it, do you think there's an oversaturation on like games in a season?
Oh, very, yeah. I'm a fan of the 162.
That's something I don't hear very often because I don't associate that much with baseball fans. Right. No offense.
I don't know. I think if they did cut it back, it shouldn't be too much though. I think it should still be well over 100 games, maybe like 140.
What's the argument for keeping it that high? Because you look at the NFL, 16.
Yeah.
You look at the NBA, 82.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot, but
yeah.
That's spread over 6 or 7 months. Starts in November, ends in. The season just ended last week.
Yeah,
so that's
crazy. I guess I shouldn't say I'm like a huge proponent of it, like 100% wanting to keep 162. Because the only reason I want them to is like I'm just such a traditional like this is how it's been.
That's
part of the game of baseball is like grueling it out. Like it's just a grinding season. I don't know what the argument for any other arguments to keep it is because baseball attendance is awful. You look at like last night the Cubs were in Miami like playing the Marlins and the stadium was like barely half full like on a Friday night. And the Cubs are in town. They're the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
So I think though if they did cut it back, I don't know if that would like help attendance out at all. Because that's part of the reason like with NBA and NBA's long itself, but like NFL, that's why every game like
is almost always sold out, even for bad teams. Well,
that scarcity.
That scarcity, and I think it also you have to think about. There's not very many minor leagues for football.
Yeah.
And in baseball, you have the minor, you have AA, AAA, single A.
Yeah.
You have all those to where like even Indy, who doesn't have a pro team,
mm-hmm.
if they want to watch baseball, they don't have to drive all the way to Cincinnati. We don't have to drive all the way to Chicago or even St. Louis if we want to see a high quality team.
Right.
We can stay here and watch the prospects for the Pirates,
mm-hmm.
which the Pirates aren't. Where do they stand?
I want to say they're like they're like third in the NL Central standings.
Yeah,
but they're pretty far back just because the Cubs like have such a
dominant
big league.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing with the season, so like my uncle, so this goes back to the sports law class I was in, talked a lot about steroids.
Mm-hmm.
I had to interview my uncle for a project. Long story short, like part of the reason players use steroids so much is that recovery. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily to like I want to bulk up and hit home runs, but my uncle talked a lot about you're playing 162 games. Like that's just you're literally almost every day you're playing a game.
That's a third of the over a third of like the actual year.
Calendar year, yeah. The Cubs starting like yesterday are playing like 24 straight games. Like straight without a break. Which is just crazy and like your body can only take so much. And a lot of the PEDs that players use are just for that recovery, Not,
interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Not that I want to I want to bulk up and hit home runs. It's, you look at like, I forget his name. He played for the Marlins though. D. Gordon.
Okay.
He's probably 5'8" like 145 pounds. He got caught with PEDs. A lot of people think it's like, the big dudes that are doing it, but
yeah, and it was. I mean, you had what's his name? I even wrote his name down. That one's mine. You had Roger Clemens. That he's not a good
pitchers,
guy. Pitchers, yeah. I wrote the other one down. It's Andy Pettitte.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was another one who was caught with him, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like those guys, you don't think of them as like the giants that Bonds was.
Exactly.
You don't compare them to Giambi or
McGuire,
Palmeiro.
Yeah.
Those all fall into one class, but then you have like the pitchers who don't like look the part of a steroid user.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think one thing that I do find interesting in baseball is their use of the All-Star game. I love that.
I do too.
Because it gives worth to it.
There's worth. I don't know if I'm a huge fan now. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the recent voting for the teams. So,
I hate fan voting. Fan voting is absolutely garbage.
And see that the reason why the NL vote leaders right now, the entire infield for the National League are Cubs players, and then one outfielder is a Cubs player.
See, that's not fair.
And there's probably 3 or 4 of those guys that actually deserve it. But for instance, the shortstop, 22-year-old Addison Russell, who's batting .230. Like, it's just because Cubs fans are like, voting just relentlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, like, I love to see a Cub, starting in the All-Star game. But is he deserving of that? I don't think so. But the game itself, love it. I mean, I make it a priority to watch the All-Star game.
That All-Star weekend is just like I still watch the home run contest.
Yeah.
I still find
you've got what's his face commentating it.
Chris Berman.
Chris Berman. Back. Yeah, every hit, even if it's not out.
Just short.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun weekend.
It's awesome.
And like I said, I think the cool thing is like having it determine home field advantage for the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Gives it importance.
Yeah.
Because people are playing not because I'm here with the coworkers. I'm just gonna enjoy this flag football game or if you're looking at the NBA, I'm just gonna throw a hoop every time and LeBron's gonna be there just magically. Both teams they're just throwing it up to LeBron.
Yeah, I think though with baseball, we're lucky enough with this the nature of the sport. Like they can make it that. They can take it that seriously
because it's slowed down.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't blame the NBA guys for going out there and not giving. I mean,
half-assing it.
Yeah. Same thing with NFL. I mean, that's
even more so. You understand?
Yeah, and I almost feel like they should just do away with that.
They need something, but it needs a rework because
they've tried everything from the drafting the teams that they've done recently.
I think just abolishing the game itself, still call it the Pro Bowl, but it should be something different. Someone had said that it would be funny if they played sports that they didn't play. So like having a home run contest with like a bunch of like linemen. I don't know. There has to be something because viewership is down. It's not a fun game to watch. No. They're there because it's fun, for them.
They're getting paid.
It's an acknowledgement that they had a great season.
Mm-hmm. Now is that fan voting too?
That one I don't think so.
Okay.
Don't quote me on it, but I think that one is like that one may take into fan voting, but I know like the NBA is not entirely fan voting.
Okay.
I think it has some of a panel, but fan voting ever since that became a thing, like in the dunk contest, that's just changed the scope of like what competition.
I mean, you look at just technology, like allowing people to do that. I mean, vote from home, like he just dunked. Let us know what you think from home, from your couch.
Which I don't. I think it's too much.
Yeah.
Like, there's people who like you have judges for a reason. You have they've had like former dunk champions like Dr. J as a judge. He knows what a good dunk is. Yeah. He played in the NBA and had some of the most explosive highlights in NBA history.
Yeah.
He has a better opinion on what's good than what Billy back home does.
Right. I think it's cool though to still get the fans like their take on it for sure, but should it matter? Like, no.
Same with like voting for a season like accolade or an all-star appearance.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need for that.
No.
You have panelists, or you should have a dedicated panelist say, hey, this is who I think. I submit my card on this is who I think should be an all-star team, starters and reserves.
Yeah.
And then starters, it'd be a weighted amount. Starters be worth this amount, reserves be worth this amount.
Okay.
Take that into consideration. Then that's how you assemble your roster.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think it's also strange that they'd be rid of the center position in the NBA.
In the NBA.
Yeah, in the All-Star game, they don't have. You can't. There's no voting for center. It's it's 3 forwards.
Well, see, I did notice for the All NBA team, it's
3 forwards.
Yeah, 3 forwards, and I forget who was on.
Which
it.
basically takes away the focus of players like Aldridge, players like Tim Duncan, who are they are block presence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to thrive around the painted area. Granted, that's not what the NBA is about anymore. But there are those players that work like that. Same with Drummond, Andre Drummond. He's
back to the basket,
and that's not what thrives in the NBA anymore. But who knows when we'll get to the point where it does thrive again?
Yeah.
Just like everything, it's the meta is always changing.
We were talking about earlier.
Things change so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You look at football, and what works in football and what doesn't work in football is a rule change or a player demographic change. You may get a bunch of athletic running backs.
Right.
You may get a great back class. Of course, you're gonna choose to go to the running back more if you've got a large plethora of running backs. Right now, there's a shortage. There's only I'd say 5, if that, elite running backs. You look at AP, Jamal Charles. If he plays well, DeMarco Murray,
Le'Veon Bell. That's about it. LaShawn McCoy, maybe
not in Buffalo.
Yeah.
When he was at Philly, yeah. I mean, you had what's his name in Seattle, Beast Mode.
Yeah. I can't think of his name.
Oh my gosh.
Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch, yeah. And now that he's gone, I mean, that takes away from the running back talent.
Mm-hmm.
And now what? Yeah. I mean, you're not reliant on the running back like you used to.
No.
I mean, you talk about the LT days when LT was dominant.
Sean Alexander,
cover of Madden 2007.
Oh man.
You go back and you look at what's his name from Detroit, Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders. I mean, you look at some of those, and they carried an offense.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you just can't do that. Because of how the game has changed.
Yeah.
The game has put the dictation, or the quarterback dictates where the offense goes.
Exactly.
Not the running back anymore. So that's just the game changing, and that's the same with the center in the NBA.
Yeah.
We'll see if that comes back, because the center was so dominant.
I'd like to see it come back.
Yeah. And I think if one player brings it back, I mean, you look at what Shaq did. Shaq is a prime example where Shaq dominated the league for that time when he was in LA, when that time where the short stint in Miami. And still, even after that, Shaq was a force, and you had to dedicate someone big to stop Shaq.
Yeah.
If someone
double team him every time.
If someone could do that again, and a big guy comes out and isn't a shooter, I'm going to score 20 points every game in the paint.
Grab 15 boards a game, and I don't know if there's anyone in the league now that is capable of that, but I'm sure there will be soon.
Yeah, that's it's all based on who comes up, who's the player. Because I mean, you think 5-6 years ago, who the go-to was of dominating with their back to the basket? Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
Dwight
now
Howard.
He's nothing.
No one cares. No one cares about Dwight Howard. He is he's not even relevant.
No. He's awful.
Well, it also doesn't help that he was in Houston, where
very bad.
He's not going to get his possessions.
Very bad chemistry there,
especially with James Harden.
Yeah.
So we'll see where the games go. Especially, I'm interested to see if the center comes back, because I always had a big fan. I remember back when I was Little Lions head coach.
Oh man!
And I was big on teaching post players how to actually play, because at that age, especially, the post is going to dominate, because you got 3'4" guard,
and you get your one big boy on the team
who's maybe 5 foot, and that's going to dominate when you're 1.5 feet bigger than some of these kids.
Yeah,
that is dominant. And that can even play into high school.
Mm-hmm.
High school, especially in our area, it wasn't a huge thing. I mean, you look at our biggest player for the longest time was Colin Egan.
Yeah, and he shot threes.
He shot threes, and he was only 6'5".
Yeah,
that's a guard height.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you even look at now that I think about it, you're watching an NBA game, even college. No one, even if they throw it in the post, they're off the block. They're not on the block. They're off the block, on the baseline, and as soon as they get it, it's square up, and then make a jump shot or make a move. There's nobody that very rarely do you see someone get the ball with their butt on the block, back to the basket, and then make a move from there.
Yeah, it's more how can I make a normal basketball play instead of you look at the old post players and they had so many moves to get to the basket. You back to the basket and I'm gonna turn around, pivot, hook, or use my body to drop, step, and then dunk it.
Yeah.
You got a lot of that nowadays. It's face them up,
Yep.
and then what's my shot gonna be? If they're playing off, 10, 15 feet out, I'm gonna take a shot.
Make it in.
If they're playing close to me, most of the time I'm athletic enough to beat them
Exactly.
and make them go off balance and get an easy layup. It's not that's more or less your options.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of people doubling the post anymore. You don't have a lot of people going to the post anymore. So because you also there is no dominant force that is a post player.
Yeah, and there's not very many opportunities to get down the court and get set and let your big man, because a lot of it's run and gun. You look at the Warriors, obviously, and I think a lot of teams are probably going to start. Whatever is working, people start trying to adopt for themselves.
Shouts to the Wildcat, like we talked about.
Yeah.
We talked about the Wildcat, and that's what worked for a select one or two teams. But once everyone popularizes it,
People figure out how to stop it.
so then it becomes who can switch back, who can switch styles again. I think
Who's
that's
the most adaptable?
I think that's one of the cool things about competition, not just sports, but competition as a whole. Everything develops. Someone figures out, unless it's something like checkers.
Yeah.
That's a hard
Checkers.
But that's an example or Connect Four. Those are games that are figured out. There's no strategy to it because there's one strategy that wins. It's one dimensional. I'm going to use it and win. But if you play a game like basketball has IQ, player IQ to take into consideration. It has the rules of the game develop. It has actual basketball decisions. It has the players developing. You look at LeBron. LeBron would have probably been 20 years ago. He probably would have been inducted into the Hall of Fame prior to leaving the game.
Yeah.
Because there was no one that big and athletic back then. LeBron's a different not caliber, but different definition of player.
Yeah.
And nowadays you look at Durant. Durant is a 6'11" forward
Who can handle the ball?
Shoot threes.
Yeah.
Who thought of a 6'11" guy shooting threes? Paul George is 6'10" and can do everything. LeBron's 6'8", at one point was 280 and was big enough to do everything. That is unheard of, other than maybe Magic Johnson.
Yeah. And I don't know how much of that you give credit to just the development of training, nutrition, and working out. Because would LeBron James be as big as he is? Obviously he would still be as tall as he is, but would he be as athletic and explosive as he is today if it wasn't for all the different developments in training and what you eat? And
I even look at some of the old stories of basketball players in the 50s and 60s. Players were walking around openly smoking.
Yeah.
And who does that?
Yeah.
I don't know how official it is, but I saw someone that said it was a top 20 stoner athletes of all time, and number one was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is a Hall of Famer, all-time leading scorer. You don't think of athletes as taking those risks that they would nowadays, and if they do take those risks, you're a Johnny Manziel who's shunned from the league, and now Chris Anderson, Birdman, was banned from the league, banned forever, and then got it repealed.
Yeah.
So you don't think of that substance being a part of substance regularly would be common in the culture, but that's how it was, back then, and that was before nutritionists. That started from convincing me to talk about baseball. I don't know how we got to that point.
I love it.
This will be an interesting video to go back and watch.
I know. I can't wait.
So, do you want to talk about, looking at the schedule, do you want to talk about sports dynasties, or you want to talk about some of the stuff you're doing now with your baseball and basketball camps? You pick.
Let's go. Let's talk about sports dynasties.
Okay, you did your research, so I'm not gonna.
No, just a little bit.
Enough.
Yeah, I couldn't pick out, because you said top 5. So I'll throw.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Of course they're on there.
I will. I'll tell you what I stumbled upon and see what you think.
Okay.
Some interesting teams I never even thought of, like some college teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got UConn women's basketball.
Yeah, that is one I do not think of regularly, but that dynasty under
you look at from 2000 to 2016, 10 national championships. 10 in 16 years, 4 undefeated seasons, 90 straight wins. 4 undefeated seasons.
They won over 50 games straight multiple times.
Yeah.
So you have to recognize them as an dynasty. I completely forgot to.
Yeah.
But
and then another one. This is kind of a diamond in the rough. UNC women's soccer. Okay.
Look at you.
1970 to 2012, 22 national championships.
Good Lord.
Is that not? That's crazy. There's 704 and 78.
704. I have 700.
And that 78 was losses and ties. So they didn't even have 78 losses.
Oh my gosh.
So, that is just ridiculous. I don't care what sport it is.
Oh, that is so bizarre.
Yeah.
That's
Crazy.
so good. And that was in what time frame? 30?
That's from 70 to 2012.
70 so
22 national championships in 42 years.
So
over half.
Over half.
Yeah. Just
good example.
Yeah. The big one for me that was a no-brainer, UCLA men's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
The 10 national titles, 7 straight. You look at, you got John Wooden at the helm.
Probably maybe a top 5 coach.
Yeah.
In basketball history.
Yeah. You got the players, Kareem, Bill Walton. Yeah. And an 88-game win streak.
That's impressive.
Longest
in
period.
Men's. Men's.
And undefeated 4 times. So just crazy. And kind of another tangent. So I was in Notre Dame this weekend.
Yeah.
Me and Connor, who I was visiting, went to the Joyce Center up there to kind of walk around. And we were looking around at some of the plaques. And Notre Dame, before that 88-game win streak, was UCLA's last loss. And then they're also the team that broke it, which is very cool, I think.
I thought I had known that. I forgot that, but that's very cool.
Yeah, like Notre Dame of all people. So yeah, UCLA men's basketball has to be up there.
Have to mention them.
A couple other teams I just looked at. You got the U.
Mm-hmm.
Their 4 titles, and just like that culture they established of just being,
You think of so many players, like on Sunday Night Football where they introduce the players. So many players came from the U.
Yeah.
And the U was so prevalent for just what they did for football culture.
Yeah. Let's see. I had the Celtics on here.
Mm-hmm. Have to do that.
I had from 56 to 86 because they won 16 titles.
Yeah.
In 30 years.
11 of them with Bill.
Yeah. 8 straight at one point, which is just crazy.
Unheard of in the NBA. Imagine the culture that would do in today's media with having a team win 8 straight titles.
Which I think when you look at the dynasties, you kind of have to weigh the different sports differently. Because, you look at NFL, like the Steelers and, the Cowboys even, in like the 90s, I think. Like, winning those Super Bowls, maybe not consecutively, and maybe not so many, but it's just the fact they're that much harder to win than a women's soccer game. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
The market's a little bit harder because in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, NFL is massive,
Yeah.
and the spread of talent is a little bit better than what it would be in women's soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at women's basketball, it's much better nowadays. But you think about 5, 6, maybe even 10 years ago, you're going to go to 2 colleges.
Right.
You're going to go to.
It's not as established.
You're going to go to Tennessee or you're going to go to UConn. Nowadays you may go to a Baylor.
Yeah.
Those 3 are the teams that people regularly think of when they think of women's basketball
Definitely.
in college, at least.
Yeah. Another team that popped up a lot when I was kind of looking at dynasties, the New York Islanders.
Hockey. Here we go.
Hockey, yeah. I'm not a hockey guy, but one of my college roommates is a huge hockey fan, and he was like, Trent, I'm going to give you a team, and this is like, I'm going to give you a team who I think you kind of fit in their fan base with, and you're going to root for them, and that's going to be your hockey team. I was like, all right, who is it? And he's like, the New York Islanders. And I was like, okay, I'm an Islanders fan. So I saw this, and I was like, that's my team. But 1980 to 1983, 4 Stanley Cups in a row.
Okay, yeah, that's...
Which, I mean, Stanley Cup, like, pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And that had the big red machine with your, Cincinnati
Midwesterners love it.
Yeah, you can't beat it.
Back when I was a baseball fan, I heard about it every weekend from my grandfather. He was like, Big Red Machine, best team ever.
Yeah. Which, I didn't look at very many, like, stats on them or anything, but I think were they the 90s or was it 80s?
It would have been late 80s. I think their last title was like 90, 91 maybe.
91, that's what I thought.
Prior to my birth.
Yeah. But yeah, the Big Red Machine, I had to throw them on there. Wrote down the Steelers. You got the Steel Curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Can't forget about them. And then I threw in the Yankees. You look at just the late 90s to the early 2000s, just so dominant.
Yep.
That was so many great players.
Mine was more like modern ones. I only did 3.
Let's hear it.
Yankees, 99 or 96 to 2000.
Yes.
4 World Series. Or
Just so many great players.
yeah, 4 World Series. I think that's what it was. I actually had 2 for NBA. It was the 99 to present day Spurs, and the Lakers from 2000 to 2010.
Mm-hmm.
With those 2 teams, in that time frame from 99 to the present day, they account for 13 finals appearances of of those years and 10 titles. So they
10
won
of the
10 of the 13 times they made it to the finals.
That's crazy.
Very few times, those 2 teams were back and forth. That would have been the big 3. That would have been Kobe and you take your pick, Shaq or Pau.
Yeah, which when I think about the Lakers, obviously that was before our time a little bit. I'm not as familiar with.
Oh, I remember it.
I know you. And I didn't watch as much NBA as probably you did.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from like Kobe and Shaq and Pau, who were some other big players?
You had Derek Fisher, Robert Horry, Big Shot Bob played for both of them.
Wow.
Yeah, he played. I think he has 6 titles, 6 or 7.
Robert Horry,
because he won with the Lakers, he won with the Spurs, and he won with the Rockets back whenever they won their lone title in the mid '90s with Hakeem and Kenny Smith.
You got Ron Artest.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Ron Artest was in there. Lamar Odom was such a pivotal part of that back-to-back year.
I remember whenever he was coming out of high school or maybe out of college. He was pegged as like the next big thing. Not like huge, but
and he played really well. I think he played his 2 teams that he really like stuck out with did he play in Miami for a little bit?
Maybe briefly.
Yeah, and then his Lakers stint.
His Lakers, yeah.
But those, you put me on the spot here, and I'm not, I'm thinking it's hard for me to recollect on those entire rosters.
Yeah.
Yankees.
Yeah.
And then the Patriots from 2001 to now.
Yeah.
2001, Brady's first year. Fun fact, Drew Bledsoe, the quarterback he replaced, they had just signed to a 10-year extension. 10-year extension, drop him.
Oh my gosh.
Now they start Brady. 4 Super Bowls wins in that time and 6 appearances. And they've always been, you know.
I mean, and like I said, that's a Super Bowl.
And I don't think in that time they had a single losing season. And they even had a 10-6 record with Matt Castle. Didn't make the playoffs that year, but.
So do you think? Okay, I mean that's kind of answers my next question. But if it wasn't for Brady,
they also had great defenses. We didn't talk about it last week, but Zeb is a hardcore Patriots fan.
Yeah.
Very restrained himself. So shout outs to you. I know Zeb is a regular in every episode. He watches every episode.
Hey, and quick shout out to Shane, picking the Raiders. Made my day. So thank you, Shane.
But I think it wouldn't be a dynasty, but they'd still have wins.
Oh yeah. I mean, Belichick is just. You have to give him credit.
You have to.
Yeah.
He is probably, one of the top 5 or 6 coaches in the Super Bowl era.
Yeah.
Second, I wanted to put it like in perspective how, in that time, the only 2 teams, the second place teams for appearances, was tied with the Steelers and the Seahawks. The Seahawks, because they played the Steelers in 2006. Mm-hmm. That was when Big Ben made his first Super Bowl appearance. Didn't throw a touchdown.
I'm trying to think of who the Seahawks had back then.
Sean Alexander.
Who was their quarterback?
Bald.
Matt Hasselbeck.
Matt
Hasselbeck.
Wow. Full circle. Now he's was here in Indy. I think he retired finally.
Did he really? He wasn't a honestly.
He's a veteran.
Not a terrible backup.
Not a terrible backup.
For a team like Indy.
Him making it to a Super Bowl, that's important.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are modern ones that you have to recognize. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the ones that you listed are super important to list.
I'm glad that I unknowingly kind of focused on the older ones and you hit the new ones. So.
Mm-hmm. I think those are the big ones that really define sports as a whole.
Oh, you can't forget about the Bulls.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, that is the definition of a dynasty.
When I think of dynasty, that might be the one team that pops in my head.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just think of franchises as a whole from their start to end.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at you stay in the NBA. Boston has won titles from early on. You talked about the early dynasty, and then they even won with the original Big Three with Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and KG.
Yeah.
That was the original Big Three. I remember when that happened, and it was like...
And then they brought Rondo in there, too, didn't they?
Well, Rondo was in his early years, so, he was a part of that title, if I remember correctly. And that series where they played the Lakers was amazing.
I remember that.
And so, you have to think of some franchises from beginning to end. You think about the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees
are consistently
beginning to end franchise where they're just the icons of their sport.
Yeah.
Football, not so much because they didn't we kind of have 2 different eras where you talk about the Super Bowl era and then the NFL championship era.
Yeah.
I mean, you think back then you might have thought about the Baltimore Colts. And
Definitely.
so, it's hard to maybe the Steelers. The Steelers were good, back in the day. Good now. The Packers are
Raiders had some stints there.
Everyone's had stints in the NFL. That's the thing.
I had to get it out.
Yeah, of course you had to say it. There's time the NFL is so weird because you have
it really is.
You have some people that are big on you have some teams that are always a 9-win team, and then you have some that are I'm going to drop 10 games this year. I'm going to be a bottom of the barrel the next year, and then the next year we're going to win 10 games and make it to a playoff game, and the next year they're back below 500. Mm-hmm. Some teams fluctuate so much, and it's so different from other sports where a lot of times if you're bad for a while.
Yeah, I think that has to do with the way contracts are structured too. Because I feel with the NFL, I mean, there's just always the free agent market is just always so big. Mm-hmm. I mean.
You also have to think of turnover rate as well because players are retiring so quickly.
Yeah, that's very true.
if I think back in the day, when, I was only a basketball fan before I got into the NFL, before I got, while I was still a baseball fan.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball and baseball, it's kind of normal to see a 40-year-old player.
Yeah.
NFL, you've got people retiring at 33, 34.
Yeah.
And that's where
still
people...
you're pushing it there.
You're pushing it there. So, that is a different,
Mm-hmm.
thing to think about. So you've got people retiring, maybe 10 years into your career. I mean, we just saw Megatron.
Yeah.
Finally,
Very-
very Detroit-esque,
Mm-hmm.
doing exactly what Barry Sanders did,
Yeah.
retiring early. And, it's sad to see.
I hated to see that.
Hate to see an NFL great go, but that's how the story of the game
the
goes.
business, yeah.
Same with Marshawn Lynch. We brought him up earlier.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing that Beast Mode is there as a personality and as a player.
Yeah. They don't have that security blanket of, here you go. 3rd and 3, here's the ball.
Yeah. So I think that's just the differences in the sport too.
Mm-hmm.
Hit a lot.
A lot of sports right there.
Yeah, that's been a lot of sports. I thought the Shane episode was full of sports, but this is far surpassed it. We
Yeah.
have yet to talk about anything except sports.
I know.
Which is totally fine.
Yeah.
That's what you were interested in. I have friends that are interested in gaming. Shouts to Avery.
Definitely.
Avery loves gaming.
Mhm.
And then, I've had other guests that love gaming. I've had Kyle and Zeb on last week that was all food.
Yeah.
That, we ranked top 5 French fries.
That's awesome.
That was what we ranked.
Yeah.
And Kyle threw us a curveball, and his number 5 was Cheddar Depot fries.
Cheddar Depot.
I was like, what?
Wow.
And then he sent me a picture this week. He ended up going to get their fries.
I didn't even know they had fries.
Exactly. I said the same thing.
Wow.
Crinkle cuts, they look good. So I'll be down this
I'll try
weekend.
that.
Oh, well, next weekend I'll be down. So
Okay.
I think I may be.
I might have to do that tomorrow. I'll
Yeah.
be in Salem. So.
So yeah. Anything else you want to hit? We've got. I mean, we've been rocking and rolling for a good while.
Man, I'll tell you what. I am worn out. To be honest.
It wears you out just talking.
Yeah.
Granted, we didn't talk cohesively for a while.
know.
Maybe that's why we
I
couldn't
know.
do a show, because we'd be like, yeah, NFL, hockey.
Yeah.
And then
UNC women's soccer.
yeah. And then next thing you know, we're talking for 20 minutes on the draft.
Yeah.
There's no cohesion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the nice thing about the show too, because I can
I
determine
loved it.
that.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna call it a
Yeah.
show.
I appreciate it.
Love having you on, Trent. You'll be on later.
I will be back.
We do have to discuss some fantasy football sometime.
Yes, we didn't even get to that.
The season is we have to discuss our league.
Oh, okay.
We have to get that settled.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna. We don't want Raffle Ball to fall apart after
no, that's our
8
baby.
years. Yeah, our baby. All right, so thanks for watching, guys. I'm Dylan St. Clair, and that's Buds of Plenty, episode 6. Hey, thanks, man.
That was awesome.